Hello everybody, my name is Grayson Horan, and today I am going to be explaining the importance of the United Nations. So, little background information. When I was in 6th grade, I would teach my class world history for 15 minutes a day. I would explain my favorite parts of history and how they contributed to everyday life. That was really the first time I realized how important the development of the United Nations was. So the United Nations is an organization of countries that was created after World War II to protect the world from global issues on a worldwide proportion. It is also the main way that a lot of countries in the world are able to communicate with one another. The United Nations is a congregation of nations that solve global issues, climate change, and keep peace among nations. Any questions from my audience? Mom.
So you talked about the United Nations helping with global issues, and so I am not a connoisseur of the United Nations, and so can you help me understand a little bit about the global issues that you're talking about?
Yes. So the first global issue that could come to mind that affected the entire world would be the COVID-19 pandemic. It affected every single country in one way or another, whether it was from the deaths or the amount of viruses that were mutated throughout the pandemic.
So is there anything that goes with my age? Because I realize that that's a topic that's your age and your generation, but I'm thinking global must have happened before the 2000s. Okay,
so a big global epidemic or pandemic that happened during your time, the first one I could think of would of course be the AIDS epidemic. And the AIDS epidemic started in Central Africa with a couple people who got some kind of rare disease that was very deadly and transmitted through different kinds of sweat, touch, and mostly sexual transmission. And the organization that found that out was the UN-funded organization, World Health Organization, or the WHO. I have an example for you to look at that is about the WHO. It is an example portraying the 3 C's during COVID. Keep away and wash your hands. It explains more in depth how to stay away from people and keep everybody else safe, but in a short summary, that is what the example that the WHO does for the world when it comes to its examples and how it pertains to today's world.
Okay, cool. You answered my question. Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the UN also helps climate change. It has many different ways of helping climate change, and those can be included with emission protection, nuclear energy protection, or any kind of atomic energy waste disposal. Do I have any questions from my audience?
I have 2.
Okay,
so,
Caleb.
First, you were talking about emissions.
Yes.
And we all know that carbon emissions. One of the biggest contributors to carbon emissions is vehicles. And so one day, I feel like everyone kind of wants to get into that, including all the big car manufacturers. Ford is moving over all of their cars to electric, which is pretty crazy. An American brand, no less. How does the UN's decisions impact the automotive industry on that front of cars moving into an electric for ecological purposes?
Okay. A very good question. So how does the UN affect how emissions are distributed and disproved throughout the entire world? Well, for example, I have an example right here with a graph and a cycle that the IPCC, which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, states on how to use emissions and dispose of emissions sustainably. So here's fragmented climate actions using fossil fuels and gasoline products that help make emissions and ruin the planet. These factories produce smoke and smog that can help create what? Emissions. That but it makes a lot of money, so these corporate industries build up and make more and more money, which involves more and more factories to be built and produce smoke, smog, and what? Emissions. So everything that a factory or a car produces is emissions. Here is a sustainable way of getting rid of emissions. You have a green way of using crops and cutting crops and cooking and everything that is very environmentally friendly. And that changes into businesses using environmentally friendly patterns to create factories that produce steam less than smoke, which steam is a really good emission and not a very bad emission. And so in the end, electric cars don't produce emission, and emission is bad. So, which would mean electric cars are, at the end of the day, very good for the environment.
So the UN is promoting the distribution of that data? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the UN has multiple panels on how the climate change situation is bad all across the world and how emissions need to be cut down. And electric cars are a very good way to do that.
Oh, okay. And then I guess another part of the emissions, and it can be even taken from a defense standpoint. So this is kind of a multi-part question. You can choose where it goes. How does the UN's decisions impact nuclear energy or even nuclear weapons? I know that you were saying that they facilitate a lot of peace between nations, and so could that impact like how nations choose to distribute and control the distribution of nuclear weapons?
Yes. Yes, it can help contribute and control the use of nuclear weapons. Here is another example by the International Atomic Energy Agency, another funded organization by the UN. And it explains how emissions warm up the earth, which atomic energy also warms up the earth, which atomic energy is a type of emission that happens with nuclear fission, which is the splitting of nuclear atoms to create, of course, a nuclear bomb.
So you're saying that, correct me if I'm wrong, so you're saying that they try to promote the use of nuclear energy without promoting the use of like nuclear weapons and stuff like that?
Yes, they're trying to promote the use of nuclear energy to dispose of it without creating nuclear weapons, because it is a way to use energy to create electricity, and factories can produce, you know, mass forms of food and grain and stuff that every single person in this world needs.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, that answers my question.
Yes, thank you. Any more questions from my audience?
Well, what is your buy-in? Like, why are you interested? Why does it make a difference to you? Like, you're 16 years old. Why do you care?
I believe that the environment and the entire scope of the planet needs to be sustained, so when I am your age, I can have a planet to live on. The UN really helps consolidate products and resources to prevent emissions and greenhouse gases from getting out of control and making the world worse and worse and worse, which would mean by the time I am your age, of course, Mom, that I wouldn't have a planet to live on. So, any questions about any of the other peacekeeping or my statements in general?
No.
No? Okay, so I believe that is the end of my speech, and I really just think that the UN is very helpful, and the UN can produce peace, produce environmentally friendly panels, and can help global issues come to an end and help the world overall become a better place. Thank you.